From presenting sponsor, People-Centric Consulting Group, please welcome Don Harkey.
Hello. All right, so we've got a chance today to talk about various challenges in our community, and I want to talk about another challenge in our community, but I want to talk first, I want to tell you a little bit of a story, and I think it's something that you can all relate to. So, as some of you may know, I'm a recovering engineer. I am 10 years clean now, so I still appreciate, hi, Don, is what you're supposed to say when I confess that. Let's try that again. I'm a recovering engineer named Don. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so when I used to work for 3M, when I first went to work there, the way that it works is you get trained a little bit, and then you go to your desk, and they have a list of projects that you're going to go work on. And got to look at one of the projects, and it said that there's a line that needed a precision slitter. Have to be careful how you say that. A precision slitter on the line. So I looked at that, and I said, how many of you here know what a precision slitter is? Okay, you know what Scott, you know what a precision slitter is? Really? Okay. Show off. Because I did not know what a precision slitter was at the time. But I read this project and I say, I have to go design and install a precision slitter. Okay, great. So I did what most engineers do when they get lost, and you just go out into the plant and you start asking questions. So I went out and I talked to the department and said, so tell me about what the challenge is. Why have you asked us for a precision slitter? And they took some of the foam tape off the line, showed me how the width didn't look quite right, so we needed something more precision. That's where the precision and precision slitter comes from. They said, we think we need a precision slitter. And I said, that's great. Do you have one and you want us to put it in? They said, no, we don't have one. We need to purchase one. I said, where do you purchase one? They said, I don't know if anybody makes them. So I'm getting very, very little information. So I go back to my desk and I'm sitting around thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to go about this project? And so I go back and I remembered in my training, they talked about these engineers that we used to have that were super experienced, had been around for a really long time, and they had offices kind of on the edges. Like we were all on a big cubicle farm up in St. Paul. Like you can imagine this like cubicle. We were like gophers that would pop our heads up every once in a while and look at each other and then go back to work. But along the outside, there were the hard-walled offices, and these were the engineers who were like the Jedi Council. They would like sit along, and they had been there for 30, 40 years and had just tons of knowledge, and they would just sit there. And I don't think they had any other responsibility except for other people to just go to them and ask questions like, hey, how does this work? So I thought, well, I've got this group. I wonder if anybody has this expertise. So I started going through my list of people that were out there, and I didn't know any of them. And there was one guy, and it said slitting next to his name. And I thought, okay. So I walked in. His name was Glenn, and I introduced myself. I said, Glenn, my name is Don, and I am working on a project that needs a precision slitter. I don't know what a precision slitter really is. Could you help me? And he says, sure, come on in, have a seat. So he sat down. He said, show me the application. I pulled out the sample they gave me. He goes, oh, yeah, that's a problem. He says, we can absolutely fix that with one of these. That'll be great. And he told me a little bit about the difference between a precision slitter. He goes up to his little chalkboard. Yes, it was a chalkboard in his office that he wrote up, and he says, here's what a regular slitter is. Here's a precision slitter. Here's the difference between the two of them. Here's how they work and all that. So I'm like, this is great. And I said, now I need to design and build one of these things. How do I do that? He goes over to his filing cabinet, no lie, flips through it and pulls out this thick file and says, here's all you need. So I get like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I said, so how do I, and he goes, that's what you need. But what do I, just take the file, Don. You just have everything you need right there. So I thought, okay. So I took the file, go back to my desk, open it up, and inside there is a set of drawings for how to build and design a precision slitter. So before I left, he says, by the way, go speak to Scott at the 3M shop. Scott will take care of you. I said, okay, I will go talk to Scott in the 3M shop. So I took the set of drawings, I walk across the street to the 3M shop, and they had this 3M fab shop, and they could make anything you wanted. And I walked in there with this set of drawings, and I said, Glenn sent me over here, and I need a precision slitter, and here are the drawings. And I hand it to him, and he goes, yeah, great. He says, yeah, we could do that. And he flips through it, and he looks at the drawings. He goes, yeah, everything's here. And he says, oh, I'm missing some part. He goes, but I got some more back in the back. He says, I've done this before, so I'm all set. And Scott had been around there for a long time. He got 30, 40-year employee, veteran, knew everything. I'd forgotten more than I even knew. And he looks in and I said, so I need an estimate for how much, I need to know what this is going to cost. I need a bid for this so that I can tell the department how much it's going to charge. And he goes, it's going to be $31,000. And I said, which that sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not in engineering world. But he said $31,000. I said, okay, $31,000 to build that. That sounds, but I need you to like look at this and give me like a bid. And he says, I told you It's $31,000. I said, do you need to think about it? No, it's $31,000. I know exactly how much it costs. You just had the experience like you just knew. So I took that back to the department with the drawings and everything. I said, it's $31,000. They can build it. It's going to take this many weeks. Great, fine. I'm successful, right? I get the win. But think about what was key in that story, right? I had two people that had tons of experience, tons of knowledge, had been around for a really long time, who could answer those questions really quickly for me. If I didn't have that knowledge, if I didn't have that experience, how would I have had to go about solving that problem? It would have been a big difficulty for me, right? So when we think about this, I want you to think about what's happening right now. So any type of business, you always have those people that are like the Jedis inside your business, the people that you go to that either provide this amazing leadership or they provide this great knowledge or this experience, all those things that they have, right, that you go to. And sometimes those people leave. And when they leave, is it disruptive? It's very, very disruptive, right? Well, something's happening right now, then we're going to call it the leadership drain for purposes of this conversation, because there's a trend that's occurring, and it's something that we've known about for a long time, and the trend is baby boomers. Hey, usually we're talking about millennials, but now we're talking about baby boomers, right? The baby boomers, if you don't know, they started getting born right after World War II. So all these troops go off to war, and then they come back, and they make families, and all these babies started coming out for some reason. If you don't understand that, we'll have a separate presentation later. We can talk about what happens there. But there were an unusually big boom in the population, and it's this huge wave of people that have been going through the job market over time. And it's a large, large percentage of people. Let's look at some statistics about boomers in the workforce. So first of all, these boomers had this big peak, and they've been the majority of the population for a long time. But by population, this year, the millennials will actually pass the boomers. Now, the Gen Xers never had a chance, because we don't have the numbers that the millennials and the boomers have. So there's this big wave coming through. The millennials are putting another big wave through, and the millennials are quietly just running everything. Just right over here. I'm a Gen Xer, so all the other Gen Xers are like, right on, right? So millennials are aged 23 to 38 right now. Boomers are aged 54 to 72. So if you want to know where you fit into that, that's where those different populations fit. This is by the workforce. Now, back here in 2014, the Gen Xers passed the boomers to become the majority of the workforce, and we held that position for about 9 months. Yeah, and then it was a good 9 months when we had power, and then the millennials took over. And the millennials are the majority of the workforce and will be for the next 25 years. They are the majority of the workforce already. So these boomers are declining, right? You're seeing these numbers drop down. 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every single day right now. 10,000. That's a big number. You listen to job numbers, like think about job growth when you listen to it on the news and things. If they say we had 300,000 job growth in a month, like that was a good month, right? We're losing that many just to retirement right now of boomers every single day. And here's the amazing part about that trend. That trend has been going on for a long time, and that trend will continue all the way through 2030. 10,000 people a day lost. In 2029, all baby boomers will be 65 or older, which right now is a retirement age. I get that some people don't retire at 65. Some people work a lot longer. Some people also slow down a lot earlier, right? But there's this wave of retirements coming of people that are leaving. 66% of businesses with employees are owned by boomers right now. 66%. All right? Remember these boomers that are going to be moving on. There's an estimate that says that there will be $10 trillion worth of businesses changing hands over the next decade, in the next 10 years. $10 trillion of businesses are going to change hands from one owner to the next because of this trend. 56% of company leadership positions are held by boomers currently. So these are people who are leaders in our companies that have these high positions. They're the Jedis who sit and watch, and they know and they have the experience, right? It's this big wave that's coming. So in the next decade, we're going to see this massive leadership drain, and we have to be ready for it. As business leaders, as employees, as community leaders, we have to be ready for this group that is moving on to their next opportunity. Right? So what are we losing when we're losing these boomers? Let's think about that. So first of all, we're losing their knowledge, just the stuff that they know. I don't know what a precision slitter is. They know what a precision slitter is, right? That knowledge is going away. Another thing we're losing is their experience. Knowledge is one thing, but experience is just the knowing how to handle things, right? That experience, that wisdom that comes from just working for a while, right? Then the other thing we're also losing is their leadership and their vision. A lot of the things that we have that we take for granted, especially in our most successful areas, are things that have been led by somebody who has a vision for it. And they've been a leader there for a long time. And when that leader steps aside, there's a lot of consequences for that. Right? So think about this. When a small business owner, if I'm a small business owner, I'm a key part of the business can't run without me. Okay? And I decide to transition out of that business. I go to sell it. How much is that business worth? If I'm a key part of that. The answer is if I don't come with it, the business is worth almost nothing. Right? If I'm going to buy a business and I'm the one that does all the sales and I'm the one that does all the shipping and receiving and I'm the one that knows all about the product and then I have all these other employees that are working for me, but I'm still a key cog to that business. If you go to buy it and I don't come with it, the business is not worth as much. Right? So there's a risk for small businesses who aren't thinking about this transition. Okay? Companies, when they lose those key leaders, there's a domino effect. Not only do they lose the key leaders, but anybody that's seen that transition happen in their business, you not only lose that leader, but you lose other leaders as well. There's a domino effect. Other people leave. I was here because of that person, and now that person's leaving, so I'm going to also move on. Right? That's the effect. So what are some of the common mistakes that we see organizations make at People-Centric? We get to work with lots of different organizations all across the country. And here's some of the common mistakes we see them make as they're working through this issue. Number one is they're waiting too long to deal with it. We've got people who are going to be transitioning. Everybody knows it's coming, and then we'll ask, hey, has anybody talked about the transition from this leader to another leader? And they'll say no. Everyone knows it's coming. Everyone's talking about it. We talk to the employees. Everybody knows. But no one is figuring out what's going to happen next. So they're waiting too long. And unfortunately, I've seen some really sad stories of a leader who suddenly has a health condition or suddenly needs to step away or just gets frustrated and walks out. And they don't get what they could for their business, and there's a vacuum that's left inside the business. We see a common mistake where sometimes they have a culture where leaders hoard knowledge. Where it's because I'm the experienced one, I'll hoard the knowledge. I don't need to teach you because I'm around. Right? I don't need to. You just come to me and I'll answer the question for you. Instead of training others and thinking about how I could pass on that knowledge. And so when you think about how do we deal with this leadership drain, of this 10,000 retirements a day that are going to be happening to 2030, what's the strategy for plugging the drain? Actually, it's not really plugging the drain and saying you can't leave, you can't retire. Really, the strategy is going to be how do we refill the tub? Where are the next generation of leaders going to come from? How do we develop them? How do we make sure that the people that work for us aren't just working for the boomers, and then when the boomers are gone, then they're leaderless? How do we make sure that they become our next leaders? Okay? So here's some quick solutions that you can put into place right away. Number one is you can let your people start to solve their own problems. Okay? If you lead a team and they come to you and they bring you a problem, it is really tempting as knowledgeable people for us to solve the problem for them, right? I know the answer to that. Here's what the answer is. Instead, maybe what we could do is coach them a little bit and say, hey, well, how have you gone about, that is a tough problem. How have you gone about solving it? We can start to help the people that work for us or work with us to become better problem solvers and figure out how can they work through what their solutions are. Okay? Another thing we can do is just give your people more experiences. Sometimes we'll work with companies and we'll say, why don't you bring this person with you on that project meeting with the customer? And they'll say, why? I don't need them there. That's not really the point. If you think about developing the next leaders, giving them an opportunity to have those experiences is going to broaden their horizons. They're going to start thinking more like a leader, thinking differently about the company and where they're going. Third thing you can do that's quick is if you're hoarding knowledge at the top of your company, start passing it on. Start doing little classes. Start doing lunch and learns where they start having little lectures internally and passing on information. That's an easy thing to do that a lot of times I've seen companies be very successful with. Right? But other than these quick solutions, there's probably some longer-term planning solutions that you can put into place. How can you plan to have your next sort of leaders? You have to start thinking about it now before it comes up. So who are going to be the next generation of leaders? Start to identify them. One thing that I know a lot of businesses get stuck in organizations is they think, okay, well, Joe is probably ready for this position. Joe might be a leader, but he's not really ready for this position. So Joe's not ready, so we don't really have anybody. You're not looking for the person who could take over tomorrow. You're looking for the person who could take over in a few years. So you're looking for the person who has potential, the people who might be able to do it. And once you've identified them, think about what is it that you need to develop in them to get them ready to take on that leadership position. And then start working with them on it. Communicate with them. Say, hey, I've got you in mind for some special things inside this company. What do you need from me to be able to get there? And here's what I see that you might need. Let's work together to develop that. Right? Make that a deliberate part of your process, not just running the company, but thinking about the future. And then step 3 is just develop them. Work with them. Make that a process. You should be, as managers, leaders, and companies, have a deliberate process for how you develop your people on a regular basis. Okay? Last thing is a systematic solution that you can put in. How can you constantly develop leaders as a company? How can you systematically do it where it's just part of what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? And the way that you do that is you install systems that develop, inspire, and train your people on a regular basis. And the way you do that is through these 5 sets of systems, right? We've developed this at People-Centric. We call this our cultural framework. And these are sets of systems that you do every day, but these are all opportunities for you to develop and inspire your people. It's how you hire them. It's how you onboard them. It's how you train them. Right? It's how they communicate with each other, how you listen to your employees. This department doesn't work with this department. Well, where do they talk with each other? Make it systematic so that they work together. It's how your managers manage and lead people. Are your managers even trained to manage people? Do they know how to inspire and lead, or did you just promote somebody who used to be good at their old job to put them in a completely different job of inspiring and motivating other people without any training? Right? It's the processes that you do. Do your people have input in how they can improve the processes? If your folks see an opportunity to make something better, how can they take advantage of that and make processes better? And then the 5th one is strategy. Does everybody know what winning looks like? Because if you've ever seen us speak before or talk, you know that if you know why you do what you do, then you do it better. And that's true for your people too. They need to know what winning looks like on a regular basis, and then you will see people start to do things that you didn't know that they could do. We've talked a lot about competing for talent and searching for talent. How am I going to find the talent that I need to run my company into the future? The truth is, the talent probably already works for you. That's something that you need to be able to discover. So just in summary, you're going to lose some leaders, right? And you're going to need to backfill them with some new leaders. Many of those leaders are already with you right now. They already work for you. And a way to do that is to implement systems so that everything you do is designed on empowering and aligning your organization to inspire those leaders and create that next generation of leaders. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.